Welcome back to the Double Leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Jai Picks, the other half of the show, The Parlay. Joining me in to break down some UFC 289. Let's get into it. Pay-per-view week. We got 11 fights in what will most likely be the weakest pay-per-view of the year. But the boy, Charles Oliveira, stepping in with Dariush to save the pay-per-view card, get a little bit of some buys. Aldana and Amanda Nunes in the main event for the 135 strap. What are we thinking about the card?
Yeah, it's not like your typical pay-per-view card with all these big stars and a bunch of, names that all these casuals, dare I say, are going to recognize. But at the end of the day, man, you go through the list and there's some good matchups and there's some good fights to bet on. There's going to be some underdogs coming through. We were just talking. We think there's a lot of dogs that are going to be live as hell on this card. So overall, I'm excited. I mean, I would watch two toddlers fight at a birthday party on a Saturday night. So, you give me any kind of UFC fights and I'm pumped.
Yeah, we've been spoiled. We're going to be spoiled for the rest of the year. So this is still a solid fight card. 11 fights, like I said, a lot of Canadian talent on it as it is in Vancouver, Canada. So we're going to go through all the fights and we're going to give our early predictions here and tell you why we're thinking that way. But if you want to get our official bets, you can join the Double Leg Premium, which the link will be down in the description below. That is the ultimate decisions that we make. But without any further ado, we will start it off with the main event. Amanda Nunes coming in at minus 292 against Aldana, who is plus 292. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 115 for the over, plus 115 for the under. Odds are presented by BetOpenly. As always, those are the best odds you will ever find because it is peer-to-peer. One person makes a bet, another person takes it. And that's how you can avoid all that juice. 4-1 for both of the ladies in their last 5. Amanda Nunes coming in here off the dominant win against Juliana Pena. Obviously, Pena was supposed to fight her again for the trilogy. She had to pull out. In steps Aldana. And then all the success with the Mexican champs as of late. Brandon Moreno, Alexa Grasso, Yair Rodriguez. Aldana is trying to become the 4th. And I think she has a decent chance here, but main part that I'm thinking is like, what is the motivations with Amanda Nunes? I just look at it like this. You could tell in the first Juliana Pena fight, like, I think she's just kind of over fighting. I'm not going to lie. And then she loses and then she's like, oh shit, I hate losing. I don't like to lose. So then she gets it back in dominant fashion in the second fight. But then this time it's a new opponent, Aldana. It's not like somebody that she's seen before, that she has history with. I just question the motivations because it seems like I'm like embedded in the countdown and everything. She's all about her family and her kid, which is great, but it's not great. I don't like to see that if I'm like a sports bettor and I got to put my hard-earned money on you if you're more invested with your family, as selfish as that is to say. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And at this point in Amanda Nunes' career, it's like, what version of her are we going to get? Because she's been dominant for so long. And then Juliana Pena came up, didn't take her as seriously, kind of in the same situation she is now, has maybe back then the baby was a newborn, but she's expecting another baby right now, her and her wife. And, that's a lot of commitment, big life change. So like you said, man, how focused is she on all this fighting and training and everything? And Aldana is kind of Juliana Pena-esque. Like, it's not a fighter you want to go in there lacking against. I mean, she is higher level for this division in women's MMA. And if Amanda Nunes comes out like she did against Pena in the first fight, I think Aldana has a chance to win. But on the other hand, like Nunes, she tasted what it felt like to lose in a fight like that against Pena. And I think that's motivation to where she never probably wants to feel like that again. So I don't think she would have taken this fight if she wasn't prepared this time, because she knows what it feels like to not be prepared when she lost to Pena in that first one. So on Aldana's side, though, the one thing that concerns me when I look at her and I go through her fights, is that strike differential, man. She gets hit 5.71 significant strikes per minute, which is a lot, and especially if you're going to take nearly 6 significant strikes from Nunes per minute. Like it's not going to be a long fight. We all know that. She does have good volume though, kind of like take one to give one style at times. Her takedown defense is good. She's not going to go out there and offensively wrestle Amanda Nunes by any means. But so far against some of these other girls, like her takedown defense has held up until Macy Chiasson. And Macy, I don't know. I think it's fair to say that that was a pretty close fight, and Macy was starting to kind of pull away from her a little bit before that up kick liver shot, which I guess was perfectly landed. It didn't look like a big shot to me, but she's got to fight better than that to beat Amanda Nunes. Bottom line, I think Nunes probably wins if she is, been training hard and comes in like the Nunes we know. But if she's lacking in the least bit, it could be a pretty damn close fight.
Yeah. Aldana fights a lot like Alexa Grasso, and people are going to make these comparisons because it's pretty obvious comparison, but like very similar fighter, and she's stepping in here. I mean, is the submission like the path to victory for her? Like that's what I would think, right? I don't think
you would think,
and I think she can do it, but her BJJ looked pretty solid against Macy Chiasson. She almost had her out of there with a submission attempt. So if that's a path to victory for her, I think it's there. I don't know how likely it is. But on the feet, Nunes, of course, going to hold the power advantage. Aldana, she's sharp on the feet, though. I mean, if she can avoid that right hand, kind of how Juliana Pena did in the first fight, where she was just sticking the jabs so straight out there and so sharp, and tag her a couple times and get her to be like, oh boy, I can't really just wing this right hand because it's not landing and I'm getting stuffed in the face. She could have some success, but again, the line is she's nearing minus 300, which isn't that wide for her. Like compared to a lot of other fights that she's had. I mean, against Juliana Pena the first time, she was like minus 1100. And then in the second fight, she's minus 260. So it went all the way down. Like that's a huge jump. And then if you look at her fights before that, minus 750, minus 650, and minus 375 to Jermaine Durandamy, minus 400 to Holly Holm. Like she's been very well respected by the books. And in this spot, it's not like wide. Like it's not like super wide where you're like, okay, this girl has no chance. You look at it and be like, okay, that's probably not the GOAT because that's a minus 292 is not the worst price tag by any means. So I don't know if there's enough value on there to really take Aldana. At plus 292, it's solid, but it's not like an Alexa Grasso where you're getting like plus 700, 800, where you're like, all right, it's worth the shot on her because she's not. That's just you can't really bet Valentina at like minus 900, minus 1,000. So
right
in this spot, it's a little bit more playable if you like the Nunes side. And I don't know if there's enough really there to take the Aldana side, if I'm being honest. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think the books have kind of learned their lesson in women's MMA. Like, Grasso being, a massive, massive underdog, Pena being a massive underdog against Nunes in their first fight. So, yeah, no, I was definitely surprised, though, with how close the line was. I was figuring Amanda Nunes minus 500-ish, just because you look at her record and, yeah, she lost to Pena, but everybody else, and she turned around and whooped Pena, but everybody else she's just taken care of. So, pretty interesting. I think if you are playing Nunes, like it's got to be in a parlay, something you don't have a lot of stock in, because those are the type of fights you put a bunch of money on a money line at minus 250 and think it's a lock, and then you get robbed. So, yeah, man, for the pick, I'm taking Nunes. I think she does win, but there's some questions there. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Betting wise, people could lose their ass on this fight taking Amanda Nunes, and we've seen it not that long ago. It's just there's a lot of unknowns, man. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing how it plays out. Even though it's not like some fight that you can get super excited for, I think it's a decent little chess match. That could actually turn out to be a really solid fight.
For sure.
Move on to the co-main event, a lightweight bout here between Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush. Dariush coming in at -135 as the favorite. Charles coming in as the dog at +135. Over under 2.5 rounds, +165 for the over, -165 for the under. Beneil Dariush been on quite the winning streak. We all know Charles Oliveira lost in the title match to Islam Makhachev, and he's coming in here after breaking that big or that long winning streak that he had. It's coming in as the dog, and he was a dog against Islam Makhachev. So he lost as a dog in his last time out. Beneil Dariush was the dog his last time out, and he cashed. Now getting the favorite role. I just got to make this clear to everybody. I'm a huge Charles fan, and I've been a huge Charles fan. I bet on him against Islam Makhachev. And I kind of realized that, my emotions played a very heavy factor in that one. So this week, most likely, I'm just going to be enjoying the fight. I might throw a little bit on Charles to have some fun in it, but I don't know that I can confidently give out like a good bet on this fight because my emotions are so into it. But I do think we may need to realize the level of competition that the two men have been going up against. I know Beneil Dariush has had a good winning streak, but I have to say, I mean, since 2021, his wins are Diego Ferreira by split, Tony Ferguson by unanimous decision, and then Mateusz Gamrot by unanimous decision. No, those they're not bad fighters by any means. They're solid fighters, especially at the time. But it doesn't compare at all to like what Charles has been going up against in the same realm. And I almost wonder if, since 2021, it's Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and then Islam Makhachev. And he did Chandler, Poirier, and Gaethje all in the span of 12 months. And then he had to fight not even or a little over 5 months after that again. So I'm like, did he just get burnt out or what? Like, I don't know if that's the problem, because he's as talented as they come, and he's had his ups and downs. And maybe it's just the factor that Islam was better. And I think Beneil Dariush presents a lot of those same problems that Islam would, maybe not to the same degree, but yeah, I don't know if it's a great matchup for Charles, but at the same time, I'm like, this guy is so high level. He can finish the fight in a split second. Beneil Dariush hasn't been fighting those guys over the past, 2 years. So I question that a little bit. But then I also saw a stat that Charles Oliveira is like 0-4 in Canada. So that was not a good stat to look at. But yeah, this week I'm most likely just going to enjoy being a Charles fan and hoping he wins. And I'll probably throw some money on him just to, have a little bit more in it. And it's plus money. So I'm, getting a little value there. So what do you think?
I'm going to start this off by saying, I know you're on Charles, that's one of your favorite fighters. I'm on Dariush here. So let's make a bet right now. We're going to UFC 290, July 8th. The loser has to buy the first dinner when we get there.
Sure.
All right. Are you not confident enough to bet that?
I don't know. I'll be like really pissed at the dinner. That's the problem. All right. If Charles lost, then I gotta eat.
Then it's McDonald's.
Yeah.
No, but the fun thing about this one is that you can make a case for either guy on both sides. Like if you really break everything down, there are things on both sides that each fighter could have an advantage over the other. And with Charles Oliveira, you touched on it, the strength of schedule to beat Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, and Dustin Poirier back to back to back, finishing all of them. I mean, those three guys are some, of the top guys in the lightweight division, but some of the toughest and some of the guys who hit the hardest too. When you look at Gaethje and Chandler, Charles Oliveira was able to weather the storm and come back stronger and finish those fights, which is super impressive. And then you beat Poirier by submission. And, Dustin Poirier is a guy who's been in this game forever. He has wins over the biggest names. And so that's a massive win as well. Charles, man, on the ground, submits dudes. On the feet, he drops people. I mean, dropping Gaethje like that, nobody really drops Gaethje. Everybody hits him, but nobody drops him in that fashion. So it's super impressive what Charles can do. And then Dariush, 8-fight win streak. Every single fight, I feel like we see something new with Dariush, or we see another level of his game. Like he's constantly improving. Because before this 8-fight win streak, he was 0-3, or he'd lost 3 in a row in the UFC, and then he beats Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, and then goes on this little run. But man, what really, really sticks out to me on Dariush's side is not just that he could probably match the grappling of Charles, but how strong he is in that grappling department, like physically strong. We saw Gamrot, who's a damn good wrestler, gets a bunch of takedowns, and Dariush was just rolling with everything and getting better position. And ultimately, won that fight pretty handily on the judges' scorecards. On the feet, I kind of give the technical and slight advantage to Charles here. Like Dariush almost looks uncomfortable at times on the feet, or a little bit slower. Like he's almost got like these big slugging shots. He's not like quick and like a traditional boxing style. So I think honestly, if the fight goes to the ground, that strength in Dariush, his top game, is going to match Charles or maybe be a little bit better. But on the feet, man, I think Charles can find the chin. I think that's where he's going to shine in this one. He's going to be faster. He's slicker. Dariush gets hit. I mean, he just does. So, yeah, man, if Charles wants to win, I could see him finding the knockout here. But Neil, the other thing that scares me on his side is he doesn't really have a finish in his last 3 fights against Tony Ferguson, Diego Fajeda, and Mateusz Gamrot, whereas Charles' last 3 wins, he's finished everybody, and he's done it against higher competition. So the last thing for Charles, where's his head at mentally? After going on this run, everybody's calling you maybe the lightweight GOAT. You've beat everybody they've put in front of you. You're finishing everybody, and then you kind of get, I don't want to say embarrassed, but you kind of get dominated by Islam Makhachev, which, not really any sweat off your back. Islam is that guy at 155. So you just think after the career he's had, the ups and downs, you just hope he's not back on a down here after coming off that loss to Islam, because Dariush is going to be a tough test for anybody in the division, let alone Oliveira. So I'm sticking with Beneil here. I'm going with him.
All right, that's the dinner bet.
Yeah.
I will say Beneil's body kick could be a big factor in this one because it's southpaw and orthodox, so that body kick is going to be there. And he's got a wicked body kick. I was watching film today, and that thing smacks in there. And then, of course, that left hand that he just cracks people with out of nowhere. So that's the thing that scares me the most is like Charles' striking defense. There's a lot of holes there, and he could capitalize on it. And he can't just lay on his back because Beneil can go to the ground. So that's the real hesitancy with me. But that's the dinner bet. I'll take you up on it. And,
could be high level though. I mean, this could be one of the highest level grappling matches we see this year.
Yeah, I just hope. I hope at some point it hits the ground where neither guy is like concussed or like had just gotten cracked, so we can like actually see that, because those scrambling exchanges with Gamrot that Beneil was having were like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We all know how good Charles is on the ground. If somebody catches someone on the ground, I'll be surprised because both guys are super good. But Charles has been submitted before, so it is definitely there. Keep her moving. Welterweight bout here. Mike Malott coming in at -190 against Adam Fugitt coming in at +190. Over under 2.5 rounds, +230 for the over, -230 for the under. Mike Malott coming in here on a winning streak. The Canadian gets the pay-per-view draw against Adam Fugitt, who shit in my apple pie last time against Yusaku Kinoshita, getting the first round knockout there as a +260 dog. So that was quite the performance. I didn't see that coming. But I got to say, I'm a little concerned for Mike Malott in this spot because I think he's talented, but I question his durability a little bit. And I question the cardio because he's a first round submission and knockout specialist. I mean, he gets it done in the first round in all 9 of his wins. So we haven't really seen him past that. He went to a draw in one of his fights. So yeah, I don't know if this fight hits round 2, Adam Fugitt could take over. But if this fight hits the ground, I would give Mike Malott the advantage. Dude's very slick on the ground. But it's just on the feet. I think there's some holes that Fugitt could exploit, and he kind of did against Yusaku Kinoshita. Caught him with a good left hand, and that concerns me, especially at the price. So I don't know that I could lay the chalk on Mike Malott in this spot. Even though it's in Canada, it seems like they're setting him up, like for a good win. But who knows? Sometimes it's tougher to fight in front of all of your home crowd. What do you think?
Yeah, I try to call it every week the parlay buster of the week, and this could be that parlay buster with Mike Malott. You know, Fugitt, when you watch him strike, like against Kinoshita, you can tell he's not this natural, crazy striker, but the guy's a big dude for the division. Like he's long, he's
Mhm.
strong, and I was not expecting him to go out there and stand with Kinoshita, and he did. And after seeing what Kinoshita did on the Contender Series with how slick his striking was, I mean, Fugitt had him stopped in his tracks with some of those shots he was hitting him with. Like he hits pretty damn hard. And I think the last time Mike Malott fought, we were on. I was on submission. I think you were too when he
Yep.
beat Johan Lioness by submission. But we did talk in that breakdown about how he's got these little legs, man. He's got some skinny legs, and we thought that Johan just need to go and attack those. I think you will see Fugitt doing that. I think you will see him attack the legs and the body, and anything to slow down that pace and that explosiveness of Malott that he has in the first rounds, because that's always his best round. That's where he does, that's where he finishes fights. It's where he gets things done. So yeah, if you're Fugitt, it's kind of, that situation where you don't want to go to the ground with Mike Malott, but there might be times in that first round where you're going to have to shoot a takedown. Because I mean, Adam Fugitt, we've seen him get takedowns. We saw him dominate Kinoshita on the ground once he got it there. But like you said, Malott's slick with the submission. So for this one, it's all about if Fugitt survives that first round, and if he does, if you get Malott tired, I think you take away some of that explosiveness and you take away some of the threat even on the ground with the submissions. And if you get past the first, man, Fugitt's just got to control the fight, do some good work on the feet, hope Malott gets tired, and I think he could find the upset here. I'm gonna pick him for my pick here too.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way too. Like I hate taking like the guy that seems to be set up, but I also am like, I can't play that price. It's too much. And Adam Fugitt in his last time out, plus 260 dog, as I said, in his debut, he lost to Michael Morales, but he was a plus 450 dog, and he made it to the third round. And Michael
Took him
Morales,
down in the first too.
yeah, Michael Morales is 14-0. Like the dude's a stud. And those are his only 2 UFC fights. But if you look at LFA, he was matched up with Solomon Renfro as well. And he was a plus 350 dog against Solomon Renfro, and he got the first round knockout in 43 seconds. Like Adam Fugitt be Fugin sheet up, man. Like he comes through as a dog for a lot of bettors. And I think that's kind of worth a shot in this spot. We haven't seen too much of either guy. So
The public is going to be all over Mike Malott too.
yeah. Oh yeah, they're going to be all over him. So I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that one. And for the sake of the show, I'll take him too. We can ride together.
Let's go.
UFC or featherweight bout here. Dan Ige coming in at minus 230. Nate the Train Landwehr coming in at plus 230. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 110 for the over, plus 110 for the under. Nate the Train coming in here 4-1 in his last 5. Dan Ige 2-3, but he's been fighting at the top of the division for a while, and he's coming off a big knockout win against Damon Jackson, which was a very nice little left hook that he put him out with in the second round. Before that, losses by decision to Evloev, Emmett, and the Korean Zombie. The man has never been finished in his 6 losses, 6 professional losses. He's never been finished, and we're looking at this one with Nate the Train, who has gained a lot of momentum with the fans and on a 3-fight win streak. So he came in the UFC, couple of knockout losses that look pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. Like he was he was a minus 135 favorite against Erosa. He got caught with that flying knee. Minus 130 against Herbert Burns. He got caught with a knee in the clinch. And then ever since then, he's been winning. Plus 300 dog cash against Ludovic Klein. Cash is plus 270 against David Onama. And then was a favorite against Austin Lingo in his last fight. But he's coming in here as an underdog. Are you sticking with the Train here or no?
I don't think so, man. I'm big on Dan Ige, and regardless of his losses, like he lost 3 in a row before that Damon Jackson knockout, but it was to the Korean Zombie, Josh Emmett, and Mavzar Evloev. And then I got a lot of flack from publicly stating that Dan Ige was going to knock out Damon Jackson because Damon Jackson hadn't really been fighting anybody like Ige. And sure enough, he got sent to the Shadow Realm in that second round. So, but Landwehr, man, he's tough. Like he's going to be tougher to put out than a guy like Damon Jackson. But it's kind of the same situation. Like Landwehr just beat Austin Lingo, David Onama, and Ludovic Klein. Like Ludovic Klein, like okay, that's a decent win. But David Onama is kind of first round or bust, and that I mean he gassed out hard in that fight against Nate, and Nate, damn near finished him a few times, damn near got finished a few times. Dan Ige's a lot more of a controlled fighter than those guys. He's got a lot more high level experience, and he hits like a train, man. He really does. I'm gonna stick with Ige here. I hate the price. Like I'm not gonna play it on the money line or anything. I would mess with maybe putting him in a parlay. I haven't yet, but I mean, I've been thinking about it just because I think there's just such a big level in competition they've fought. I think there's a big level on who both these guys are as a fighter right now. Like maybe give it a year or two, a little more like better competition for Landwehr and see what he looks like against some of these higher level guys. Then I might be more confident. But right now, man, I'm sticking with 50K.
Yeah. I mean, I look at these stats, and Ige lands 3.8 strikes per minute. Nate Landwehr lands 6.47. Like the activity on the feet definitely goes to Nate. The knockout power definitely goes to Ige. And we've seen Nate like get hit hard a good amount of times and not take it very well. So that kind of scares me. I would almost lean Ige inside the distance if you like that side, or like Nate by decision. Because the over under set 2.5 rounds, and it's minus 110 for the over, plus 110 for the under. So it's pretty much even money for over under 2.5 rounds. If it goes the distance, like Dan Ige, he's never been finished. So if it goes the distance, you probably want the plus money on Nate. And the fans are probably going to be cheering for Nate too. So maybe that's probably the way I'll go about it. If I like one side or the other, I'll go finish for Dan Ige or by decision for Nate Landwehr. But yeah, I don't like how open Nate the Train leaves himself on the feet. And Dan saw Dan Ige just murk a guy with that left.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't. I mean, he got knocked out by Erosa. He got knocked out by Herbert Burns. Like that's not a good look. But he's been fighting at such a high level for such a long time. Like he went over to M1 in 2017, and he was getting wins over in M1, which is a tough promotion to fight for because it's over in like Russia and Kazakhstan. So you're fighting like the killers over there, and he was getting wins, got into the UFC. So yeah, I think it's just a fun fight overall. Yeah. I mean, that's besides the co-main event, like this is probably the second best fight on the card, or the main event, or the main card, I would say. Looking forward to it. But for the sake of the show, I'll take Dan Ige. I think he should get it done. Middleweight bout here, Marc-Andre Barriault coming in at minus 125. Eric Anders coming in at plus 125. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 142 for the over, plus 142 for the under. Another Canadian on the main card here, and that's probably the only reason that they can get away with it, because this is a tough main card opener. And I think what they did here, this is the first fight on the main card. You want to get people from Canada. If you're in Canada and you want to fight or watch this pay-per-view, you're like, okay, I need to see the Canadians at least. So they threw the Canadians on here, and Marc-Andre Barriault coming in here as coming off a win against Julian Marquez, and he's 3-2 in his last 5. But I will say the wins aren't super impressive, but the losses aren't like terrible either. So I mean, he's kind of like a bubble to like middle of the pack middleweight. Like this is a step up in competition for him against Eric Anders. who's been around for a while. I mean, this is like his 16th UFC fight.
Yeah.
And he just got a good knockout win against Kyle Dawkins in the second round. I think Marc-Andre Barriault could struggle with the power of Eric Anders and maybe the pressure. But, you know, they say Marc-Andre Barriault is the power bar. So he's going to be live in those second and third rounds. But if he can't survive till then, I think Anders could blitz him in the first. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I kind of went back and forth on this one, but at the end of the day, like I was at the fight against Kyle Dawkins, and Dawkins just took one shot and kind of gave up in that fight. I mean, he kept getting back up and then dropped again. And then Kyle Dawkins, I mean, I don't really hold a lot of stock in that win. I've never been big on Kyle Dawkins at all. But he lost to, Jung Young Park, Andre Muniz, who's a stud, wins over Darren Stewart, split decision, Gerald Mearshart. Like, he's not beating anybody phenomenal, not losing to anybody terrible. Like, I think both these guys, when you look at their records, it kind of mirrors each other a little bit. Like, they're never going to go on a win streak. They're never going to lose too many fights in a row. I mean, I know Barriault lost his first 4 in the UFC and then went, 4-2 after that. But both guys kind of unpredictable at times too. The one thing that I do like a lot about Marc-Andre Barriault, Andes, who's just, a menace out there, who takes it out of everybody. But for Eric Anders, after that first round, after, going for takedowns and the grappling, he seems to get a little tired. Like, he holds a lot of muscle, and he seems to kind of, his arms look a little bit heavy as fights go on. So I worry about that. I worry about a crazy first round, kind of like the Marc-Andre Barriault and who did he fight last? Julian Marquez fight was. Just a wild, crazy pace. And then Anders kind of gassing out after that, and Marc-Andre Barriault cruising to a decision or something like that. I kind of see something like that happening, and I'm more confident as the week's gone on. And I actually have an early bet out on Marc-Andre Barriault because I think this line's going to grow more in favor of him. So I tried to grab it while I could at -130 on BetOpenly.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. Could be a late finish or a decision by Barriault. I think the activity on the feet is definitely going to be there for Barriault.
Yeah.
Probably for all 3 rounds. But maybe the more significant shots could be there for Anders. But I do struggle with looking at the loss to Jung Young Park, which is a split decision loss. That was just about a year ago. And he just kept going for takedowns. Like, he was just trying to spam takedowns. He went 3 for 24 on takedowns and just kind of trying to hold him there because Jung Young Park was coming with the volume. And he was just like hands over his head, like diving for legs.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not a good look. And I think Barriault could put a similar type of game plan together to beat him. So, yeah, if he can survive round 1, it might be a good live betting opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
I remember last time against Marquez, I took the live bet on Barriault. It was like +170 after round 1, and he just took over after round 1, which was quite the play there. I was happy about that, but probably a good live betting opportunity, considering the styles of both guys. For the sake of the show, I'll go with Barriault as well. Middleweight bout here, Nasruddin Imavov coming in at -140 against Chris Curtis, coming in at +140. Over under 2.5 rounds, -151 for the over, +151 for the under. This is the featured prelim, so the boy Chris Curtis getting left off the main card again. Poor guy. But I think they're using this one to get people to buy it as well, because this could easily be on the main card, and most people would like that to be. But this is a solid featured prelim to get people to, if they're watching the prelims, to be like, all right, I need to buy this main card because it should be a good fight. Imavov had just fought Sean Strickland, so teammate of Chris Curtis and co-host of their podcast. So they're probably going to have a good game plan on how to beat Nasruddin Imavov. But Chris Curtis is not the same frame as Sean Strickland, and he hasn't fought at the same high level that Sean Strickland has as of recently. But both guys are strikers. Both guys will get hit, and both guys can lay the hits. So kind of a similar style, but not the same frame. Right. And I think Chris Curtis has a little bit more power. I don't think he can put out Imavov, though. I don't think he's going to be able to crack him with something to put him out. Imavov's never been knocked out. And unless he hangs that chin out there, because he's going to be 6'3", a little bit taller than Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis can land that big left. It could change things. But I think Imavov should be able to stay at distance and kind of put the same thing that Jack Hermansson did on him. Like, they're both kind of similar frames, and they should have a similar fight here against Chris Curtis, who's going to stand there and wants to trade with you and wants to throw that left hand. And he's going to take shots too. He's just going to try to lure you in, bang, hit you with the left. If Imavov doesn't do that, he should be able to win this. But that's a big if, because he lost to Sean Strickland. And that's kind of the same style, as I said. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Chris Curtis, man, he's interesting. Like, you look at his record, and out of all of his wins in his pro career, he's got 17 knockouts. Like, the dude has hands. The dude can crack. And we saw it a little bit against Kelvin Gastelum, who has a phenomenal chin. And Gastelum's hands were slick enough to stay in that fight and win it. But the one thing I think Chris Curtis could struggle with here is the size of Nasruddin Imavov. You mix in 6'3" with the athleticism and the movement. He's really light on his feet, especially in the first few rounds. And Chris Curtis is kind of, a little flat-footed, just kind of marches forward and hits you. But I think, like you said, man, Jack Hermansson was able to just circle out, point fight him for 3 rounds and get the win. And that's kind of exactly how I see this thing going with Nasruddin Imavov. Light on his feet, jump in, hit him with a 1-2, get out of the way, circle around and do it all over again. Frustrate Chris Curtis, because we see Chris Curtis just thrives in that close range boxing, brawling, and Imavov probably isn't going to engage in that too much. I think he'll respect Chris Curtis's hands enough to not put himself in those situations, and he'll try to stay on the outside. Like, we saw the blueprint on how to beat Chris Curtis without taking any damage when Jack Hermansson fought him. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, Sean Strickland just fought Imavov. Him and Chris Curtis are boys. He's going to have the blueprint there as well. So it makes it pretty interesting. But overall, I just think the size, athleticism are going to get Curtis here. And I hate it because I want to see Curtis win. I like watching him fight. A lot of people don't like him, but I don't mind watching him fight at all. I actually kind of a fan of him. So but I got to go Imavov here, man. I got to do it.
Yeah, I love Chris Curtis, but if he doesn't have a different game plan than he did against Jack Hermansson, he's probably going to be in for a long night. But
I agree.
I'm sure he could look at that, and he has good coaches at Extreme Couture as well, that they should be able to put something together. So I'll take Chris Curtis, because that's my guy. But I'm not like super confident in it by any means. Flyweight bout here. Miranda Maverick coming in as a -270 favorite against Jasudavicius. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Coming in at +270. Over under 2.5 rounds, -325 for the over, +325 for the under. Another Canadian here, who's 4-1 in her last 5 and had a really good performance in her last time out. Miranda Maverick, 3-2 in her last 5. And she's fought some pretty tough competition. Jasmine coming off the win to Gabriela Fernandez, which we got burned on.
Mm-hmm.
She had over 11 minutes of control time in that one. So she really showed off the ground game there. And she's a massive flyweight. I will say that. Like 5'7", 68-inch reach. That's a big girl for 125. And she just kind of out-muscled Gabriela and got her down and just had good top control. And her only loss in the UFC is to Natalia Silva, who looks like an absolute killer
right
at 125. So I can't really blame her too much there. Look at Miranda Maverick. Her last time out, she fought Shanna Young and just not destroyed her, but dominated her for 3 rounds. And then her only losses in the UFC are Erin Blanchfield and Macy Barber by split, which a lot of people think she beat Macy Barber. So her losses aren't anything to hang your head about either. But I got to say, this is women's MMA, and I don't like those chalky prices on women's MMA, especially something, it could be a ground battle, really, because Jasmine's probably going to look to take it to the ground. She hasn't really looked to use her striking too much in her UFC fights. Miranda Maverick is a very solid grappler though, and it comes down to who's the better grappler.
Right.
I think, and I don't know. This one's dog or pass for me. I don't think I could take minus 270 on Miranda Maverick, even if she has the better ground game going into it. I just don't think I could take it because like Canadian plus 270 fighting in her home country, women's MMA, that ain't me. I mean, I think Miranda Maverick probably should win, but I'm definitely not betting it. What do you think?
Yeah, Miranda should win definitely, but the size of Jasmine is. You look at how, like you said, I mean, she's a big flyweight, 5'7", 68-inch reach. On the feet, like she doesn't have the best strike differential. She's not out there finishing girls on the feet. But I mean, it's technical enough where she's going to be in fights, especially against fighters like Maverick, who is going to want to get the fight to the ground. She's going to want to do work, look for submissions. And Jasmine's like ground game and as far as like offensively getting fights to the ground is pretty good too. Like she's landed a lot of takedowns in the UFC. She just hasn't really fought anybody, man. Like Gabriela Fernandez, Kay Hansen, not in the UFC, Juliana Polastri on Dana White's Contender Series. Like we haven't seen her against any higher level grapplers or any, phenomenal strikers by any means. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not touching anything minus 270 in this level of a women's MMA fight, though.
Yeah.
I've learned my lesson before. I think we all have at one point or another. Like again, man, Miranda Maverick should win. But I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think it is. I think Jasmine's going to have a good game plan. She's good enough in the departments that Maverick's going to want this fight to hang with her for a little bit. So overall, man, yeah, I'm going to take Miranda Maverick for the pick, but no confidence in the betting department at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe to get the price better or something, you look for like a Maverick by submission or something because she's got really good submission skills.
Yeah.
And if Jasmine is going to want to take it to the ground, maybe she gets herself in something that she can't handle. And Miranda Maverick cinches something up. But that over-under is like heavily chalked to the over, minus 325. So you'll probably get some good value on inside the distance. But that's just to make the price better. And this is women's MMA. If it goes to decision, you probably want the underdog ticket if it's a close fight. But yeah, probably one you'll lay off. Bantamweight bout here. Ayman Zahabi coming in at plus 115 against Aoriqileng, who's coming in at minus 115. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 188 for the over, plus 188 for the under. Another Canadian in here. Taking on Aoriqileng, who's 3-2 in his last 5. Zahabi 3-2 in his last 5 as well. And he's just coming off a massive win against Ricky Turcios by decision. He's 3-2 in the UFC. And he had a decent fight there, but it really just looked like Turcios was like just didn't look good. And I don't know what to really attribute that to. Because Turcios landed at an alarming 11% clip in that fight, which was just unreal. So I don't know if that's just Zahabi having great striking defense or if Turcios can't hit the broadside of a barn with his punches or his kicks. But that is one I might just throw out the window. In this one, it's damn near a pick 'em. Aoriqileng has had a couple of decent wins back-to-back. Cameron Else and Jay Perrin, but it's just level of competition. Like, what are you looking for there? I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go dog or pass on this one. Ayman Zahabi plus 115, fighting in the home country. I'll take him. I'm not like too much rhyme or reason to that. It's probably a stand-up battle. Both guys are gonna look to strike, and I think Zahabi should be a slightly better with the volume. Aoriqileng might have the power factor into it, but yeah, I'll take Zahabi. What do you think?
Yeah, for Aoriqileng, it's like you're losing to the guys you should lose to, Cody Durden and Jeff Molina, and then you're beating Cameron Elson and Jay Perrin, who short-lived in the UFC after getting submitted by Raul Rosas Jr. But you look at that. You look at him beating the guys he should and losing to the guys he shouldn't. Like, where does Zahabi fit in there? Like, what level is Zahabi? Like, what's his fight going to look like? And it's kind of hard to tell. Like, you watch Zahabi in there, and he's a little flat-footed. He fights okay going backwards. Like, he gets backed up really easily. at least from what I noticed in the fight against Tercios. And Tercios was, clapping in his face and doing some weird shit that I probably would have backed up and thought, what the frick is going on right now? But so against Tercios, yeah, he got the win, but man, I'm just not impressed with Ricky. I mean, since the Ultimate Fighter, I'm just not high on him. Beat Draco Rodriguez and then loses to Vince Morales and Ricardo Ramos. And as far as how this fight's going to play out, statistically, you don't think Zahabi's going to take it to the ground, but the skills are there if he had to. Aoriqileng averages 1.57 takedowns per fight, but again, you don't really see him shooting all the time. Like, you can tell he's more comfortable on the feet. So I think it's a stand-up battle here. I'm going to go with Aoriqileng because if you look at the stats too, he throws 6.07 significant strikes per minute. His striking defense is 48%, and Zahabi throws 3 significant strikes per minute. So he's not a volume machine by any means. So I don't think anybody gets knocked out here. I don't think anybody goes to the ground and gets submitted. I'm going to go with the guy who is notoriously thrown more volume, might look better for the judges, and I think that's Aoriqileng here. I really do.
Fair enough. Featherweight bout here, Kyle Nelson coming in at plus 220. The Canadian fighting against Blake Bilder, who's minus 220. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 142 for the over, minus 142 for the under. The undefeated Blake Bilder, you had him in your in the last time he was out, correct?
Yep.
You taking him this time at the chalk?
It's tough because you look at Kyle Nelson. I didn't expect Kyle Nelson to look as good as he did against Doo Ho Choi. And I know Doo Ho Choi, coming off of what was like a 3-year layoff or something, 2-year.
Yeah.
So maybe a little ring rust there. But you look at the rest of Kyle Nelson's fights, man. He is 1-5 in the UFC. His only win, Marco Polo Reyes. He's losing Diego Fajeda, Billy Quarantillo, Jai Herbert. So man, he's losing a lot of fights. I know Blake Bilder is technically a prospect, but he looks like he could have the full package of what it takes to fight in the UFC from what we've seen so far. He's tough. He took some decent shots against Shane Young. Shane hits really hard, but Blake Bilder was kind of able to offset that and land a ton of volume. He landed 111 strikes in that one, landed a takedown, showed a pretty well-rounded game. Now, Kyle Nelson, if he goes out there and shoots a takedown and lands it, I don't think that Bilder is off his back. Like, I don't think he's going to submit Kyle Nelson off his back, where Blake Bilder gets a lot of his submissions when he takes people's backs. He's really good at that. Or, he's got top pressure on top of somebody, gets the arm triangles. So I could see him maybe slipping around if he does get taken down here. But so far, he's got 100% takedown defense. So for Kyle Nelson, it just comes down to that. On the feet, I think Blake Bilder destroys his legs, lands some good body shots, and is going to have the advantage there too. Kyle Nelson is not a guy who throws a lot of volume. He's a guy that does get hit a lot. So overall, man, I think this is setting up pretty good for Blake Bilder. He just got to keep the fight where he needs it, where he's comfortable. Again, don't get taken down and try to fight off your back here. Try to be the one on top or try to keep it on the feet. And I think he walks away the winner.
Yeah, I mean, negative strike differential for Kyle Nelson. Blake Bilder showed some pretty good striking in his last time out. Good volume at least. The only thing that concerns me is like Kyle Nelson is a pretty big featherweight, 5'11", 71-inch reach. And he's not like some twig either. Like he's got some good strength to him as well. Blake Bilder is bodied up though. So I don't think he'll have any problems with that. But it's just a little bit of a concern. Taking him at that high of a chalk is always like a little, you're a little wary about that. But Kyle Nelson 1-4-1 in the UFC. If he wasn't from Canada, is he on this card?
Probably not. Probably not in the UFC. He probably was, on the chopping block, and they said, wait a minute here. We could give him the Blake Bilder and keep building up the Bilder.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it falls for me. So I'll go with Blake Bilder. A little bit tough of a price, but somewhat makes sense.
Yeah.
Flyweight bout, David Dvorak coming in at minus 252 against Steven or Stefan. I think we'll go with Steven. Erceg, coming in at plus 252. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 155 for the over, plus 155 for the under. see right there for Erceg. He's 5'9", so he's a pretty tall flyweight. David Dvorak 5'5", and David Dvorak isn't like some tiny flyweight by any means. So Erceg's got some length to him, and I gotta say, I'm watching his film. He's got some good submissions. He's got 6 total wins by submission out of his 9. His only losses by decision. That was back in 2017, and he's on a 8-fight win streak. He's fighting at an Eternal MMA, which is out in Australia, I believe. And David Dvorak, a couple losses in a row. Mateus Nicolau and Manel Kopp. I'm still shocked he didn't get finished by Manel Kopp in that fight. I mean, couple pretty nasty submission attempts, but he survived and lost the decision. He also got knocked down in that one. So I'm coming in here against Steve Erceg, who is no Manel Kopp, but the value on a flyweight, I think, is looking a little decent. Like David Dvorak doesn't do anything like crazy good. You know what I'm saying? Like it's flyweights. There's a lot of like randomness with flyweights because they're so small and so quick. Like anything could happen. And I don't like the price on David Dvorak. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat with you. Dvorak, hasn't. I guess he has a submission over Juan Camilo Ronderos.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, he's not out there finishing dudes. He had Manel Kopp early in the fight in some tricky situations, after coming off those takedowns, getting the back and stuff. But Kopp was able to defend and then have some submission attempts of his own. But Erceg, man, a lot of people are really, really high on his ground game. So it'll be interesting to see, if Manel Kopp's getting real close to some of those subs. Right. Erceg's length, he's got some long limbs. He wraps up that body triangle, and whenever he does that, he's good at finding the finish from there. So that's what I worry about for David Dvorak. I mean, the UFC debuters are kind of on a roll here. We saw it last week with Imavov coming in and knocking out Jamie Malarkey. I don't usually take UFC debuters, but here, Erceg marches forward too. He's got some decent hands. Like I said, he's long. He uses it to his advantage to get in close. And like if he gets you to the ground, he's really, really dangerous. But I have noticed too, he gets hit. Like he leaves his hands in a position at times when he closes the distance there. He gets cracked, especially on the regional scene. So David Dvorak never having a knockout in the UFC, that line could be super, super juicy. And if it is, that might be a little hedge opportunity there. If not, man, I think Erceg could and might possibly pull this upset as a live dog here.
Yeah, he's taking it on a little bit short notice because it was supposed to be Matt Schnell, so he's stepping in here. I mean, David Dvorak's been fighting, towards the top of the division in his last couple of fights. So to get those losses isn't anything terrible, but Steven Erceg is dangerous, and at the plus money, flyweights might be worth a shot.
Yeah.
For the sake of the show, I'm going to take David Dvorak just because I think he should win.
Yeah.
But no way am I touching that price.
Right.
Strawweight bout here to start us off. Diana Belbita and Maria Oliveira sitting at even money on both sides. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 266 for the over, plus 266 for the under. Quite the layoff for Diana Belbita. She's been off since her last loss, which was against Gloria DePaula, and that was February of 2022. So it's a month or a year and about 4 months, and she's 1-3 in the UFC, so she might need a win here. Her only win is to Hannah Goldie, and I gotta say, it hasn't been the best run for her. If you look at Maria Oliveira, who's 1-2 in the UFC. Her only win is to Gloria DePaula by split decision. That was last June in Austin, Texas. And then she lost to Vanessa Demopoulos. Both girls are long. Both girls are decent strikers. Both girls probably want to keep it on the feet. And both girls don't have a lot of power. So I'm looking at this one. It's like probably going to be a 15-minute fight. And it's probably going to be a stand-up battle. And it's a pick 'em. So I don't really see value on either side. So it's kind of like flip a coin and pick one. But I'm looking at this one. I don't know, man. I got a feeling Diana Belbita. I mean, there's at least something to get behind there. She's been off for a little bit of time. Maybe she's gaining some momentum, getting better. And she also trains. I believe she trains in Canada, so it's like somewhat of a home field advantage for her. So I'll take her. But like nobody could tell me anything about this fight that's like, all right, she's gonna win because of this, this, and this. Like, no, this is the definition of a coin flip. You're literally getting even money on either side. I mean, if you like a certain girl, take it. If you don't like it, just lay off because it's probably pretty properly priced. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the fight where you just play pin the tail on the donkey. You go up and you slap it on something if you have to have a bet on this fight. Because, dude, you look at the stats on these girls, they're identical almost all the way down to, their takedown averages are identical. Significant strikes, both of them land just as many, if not a little bit less than they take. So it's crazy. Like, this fight should play out on the feet for sure. You look at Oliveira, 13-6. You look at Belbita, 14-7. That's close too. Like, this is your typical split decision. This is going to be whoever looks a little bit better to the judges. Both girls have decent volume, though. Both girls are like decent strikers. Like you mentioned, not much power on Oliveira's side, where Belbita, I think, holds just a little bit more power, which I think that's something to get behind there. Like, if this is going to be a dead even fight on the feet, with judges being the way they are, you're going to be wanting to hold the ticket of the girl who hits a little harder, has a little snap on her shots, going to do a little bit more damage. I think that is Belbita. And at the end of the day, though, man, if you can find a split decision prop at like plus 200 or more, I would jump all over it for this one. That's where I'm at, too. For the sake of the show, I'll take Belbita here to kick us off on the night.
Yeah, I will say Oliveira, her fights in the UFC has been to like a little bit better competition.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I look at Belbita's fights, like a lot of those, like the Hannah Goldie one, wasn't like any great win. The Paula fight, I think could have gone either way. Look at Oliveira, her only win is by split decision. The Demopoulos fight, a lot of people didn't think that Demopoulos beat her, so she could be coming in here 2-1 in the UFC, and her only loss before that was to Tabitha Ricci, who's
right,
pretty solid. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll go with Belbita as well. If she is a little home game for her, and you get a little something to get behind with the time off. So I'll take her.
It's greasy.
Very greasy. Probably one to just lay off and, maybe start the night a little bit later. You don't have to like catch the first fight or anything. But those are the picks. Hopefully you enjoyed the breakdown. If you want to get in on the double leg premium, go into the link down in the description, and we can get you set up with that. But other than that, I'm looking forward to getting on with these fights and getting on with the rest of the year, because we've got quite the stretch coming up, and this is just the start of it with the pay-per-view UFC 289. We got our little dinner bet with Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush, so we'll see how that works out, if it's a happy dinner or not. Got any other thoughts moving into the card this weekend?
No, just this kicks off the summer, like you said, man. This is going to be one of the, lineup wise, maybe one of the best lineups we've seen in a summer in the UFC ever. It's crazy. We got some great fights to look forward to.
Yep. Make sure you hit the subscription down below so you can stay up to date with everything going on in the UFC. Drop a like to support the channel. Drop a comment if you want to give your thoughts on the fights, or maybe correct us on anything we got wrong. But at the double leg on all the social medias, so you can stay up to date with all the short form content there. At HJ Picks on the medias for me. Where can they find you?
You can find me at the Parlay MMA on all medias.
All right. Next time we see you, we'll be recapping some UFC 289. Until then, the double leg signing out.